thank you very much for people attending. I know there's a lot of people from Cape Town area, the southern suburbs, that want to be here, and we're going to make a recording for them as well and have slides ready. But thank you for people coming far. I see there's more people coming in there as well. What I would like to do before we start, first of all, thanks to LaunchLab, and we've got Pius, and I think David Krieger is also, where's David? He's around the corner, okay. Pius is, what's your role? Yeah?
I am Community Liaison Officer for the LaunchLab. Yeah.
So Pius is going to also present today, and he's going to talk about collaboration between MIIA, the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, and LaunchLab, and we've got some talk about the hardware of humanity project, and that's your name for it. And I remember the previous, there was a business mixer meeting where I presented that, but it will be great for you to present that tonight. So thank you very much, and thanks for the venue. Appreciate that. Just quickly in terms of what we have available here. Luke in Damascus Coffee is still, if people want coffee, he's probably just going to be here for another 5-10 minutes. So if you want coffee, you're welcome to buy. But we do have water there, we've got wine, we've got beer, we've got snacks and stuff like that as well. So we'll bring this, as a matter of fact, it will become, when we, just after the talks, we'll interact and you can have your drinks and stuff like that. But the water is available if you want. If you're thirsty. Okay, so restroom is just, if you go here and to the left, you will see it's there. And I think, Pius, that's about it. Well, it's nothing else you want to say about LaunchLab and so forth. We can maybe afterwards we can talk more about that. There's a few people here that haven't been here before. Okay, so the agenda for today, as communicated via our channels, LinkedIn and everywhere, it's 4 things. So it's a shorter menu agenda than the previous time. We've got less speakers. We've got 2 things that I want to present. The first thing is I'm going to present on solving intelligence and solving real world problems. And I want to talk about a collaboration between Cortex Logic and MIIA. And we've been talking to corporates about this, and we actually talk quite a bit about MIIA and the people here, and I want to see who in the MIIA community also share that similar kind of vision that we have. And I know there's a number of people here that's interested in advancing the state of the art in machine intelligence. We had some really interesting talks about that. So the first part will just be that. Then I'll do a quick demonstration of Bennit. Bennit, the virtual production assistant. It's built on IBM Watson services technology. On YouTube, I do have a video of the presentation and the demo. So if you want to look at that in more detail, but I hope I've got internet. I think I've got internet here, where it's absolutely needed to do the demo because it's cloud-based solution, and you actually make use of Watson services in the cloud. So we'll see what it works. Then we're going to jump to Paul Saunders. We've together founded the Data Science Academy, and you're going to give an update on where we are. So we've been speaking to a number of corporates about that. Seems to be a significant interest in that, and I know there's people even here that's interested in some of these training courses for the modern data scientists. And for me, it's not just the modern data scientists, it's also just machine intelligence expertise. So we will be looking at courses in that area as well. And then we're going to end off with Pius' presentation. He's actually going to talk about the fourth industrial revolution and humanity of hardware project, where it fits in. So looking forward to his presentation as well. So without further ado, let's start here. I've been using this as my front end slide for a number of talks, but it really captures a lot of what we're trying to do, even with MIIA, where we want to use exponential technologies like machine intelligence and data science and all of those kind of things to help transform Africa and help shape our future. So this title is all about that, shaping our future in the smart technology era. And people like us that's interested in these technologies, that's got skills, and we see the problems, it's how to actually connect it and how to address those problems. So, and this talk is about that. So let's fire away. I'm going to skip. Maybe I just want to quickly say that for me, a personal mission, and even with MIIA, is solving intelligence for a better world. You see, what can we do with this technology to, how can we advance the state of the art to create intelligent systems to really help us excel and solve our problems. So it's always about this. And even the company that I've been the longest with, my first company, Season Systems, was really about applying artificial intelligence, neural nets, decision trees, technology in solving problems in various industries. So it's really kind of a life mission as well. But I think there's so much more to do in this regard. And just as background, I've published an article on LinkedIn. And if you're interested, I recommend that you read that because it provides a nice background in terms of the topics, what are the issues, what can AI do right now, and what can't it do? There's something about that. So just an accurate understanding of reality around artificial intelligence. And Andrew Ng, the guy that was at Stanford, he's now the chief data scientist at Baidu. He wrote an article on that, and I've commented on that article as well. It's maybe worthwhile reading that. Then the next step is about what is the current state, and it's actually fascinating. If you just read tech news, and you see what Microsoft, Google, Apple, Amazon, and all these players are trying to position themselves. And even General Electric, the company that I sold my first business to, they are partnering with this and Microsoft. They're investing billions of dollars in becoming a software and analytics company as well. So it's fascinating to see what's happening. And there's so many startups. There's one slide that shows, there's a new one out from Bloomberg Beta called the Machine Intelligence Landscape 3.0. I've got it here as well. And it's quite interesting how it has evolved. And that is only also scratching the surface. And in that LinkedIn article, I've got that as well there. And I've got some comments around that as well. So what's the current state of machine intelligence? And then the rest of that article is actually talking about what about Africa? What are we doing here? And I talk specifically about a partnership between, and I think we want to encourage all sorts of companies and other organizations that want to advance the state of the art. And basically for me it's about making our machine intelligence toolbox much stronger. So so you can have better tools to solve problems. If you read Andrew Ng's article, he was actually saying we're doing if you look at all the stuff, how we apply it, even Google's state-of-the-art stuff, it's all supervised learning, and it's really still a limited application of machine intelligence. So the scope for doing better and greater things is there. So, and it's also how do you apply to business problems. So you need to understand your problems and your applications and shape it. So very interesting. Anyway, so I encourage to read that. So I'm going to skip some of this. I actually want to quickly just talk about this, and the next slide will actually picture the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa. As a matter of fact, it's there. Now, Cortex Logic is all about making machine intelligence work. So you can see it speaks to that mission of solving intelligence and applying it. And the way we position this, and I had some interesting talks with Jacques also, we talked about why is it so wide here. If you look at the bottom layer here, it talks about commercial, open source, and proprietary software. Now, if you look at the machine intelligence software, what's happening right now, it's super interesting. When I started my first company, there was not really open source machine intelligence software really available. And so we had to write things from scratch in C++, a number of students, electronic engineering students, and they did things in MATLAB, but the computer science students, they wrote it from scratch. And we implemented all the various algorithms and various techniques. So it was very much proprietary and building it like that. That world has changed completely. And it's quite interesting to see what Google and all these companies are actually doing in open sourcing, making their technology very quickly available and creating an ecosystem around that. Like Google with TensorFlow, for instance. And it's almost like all these other companies say, what do we do with this now? And like Andrew Ng said as well, even though it's open source available, it's also not that easy to apply the open source stuff to solve a problem. There's a lot of glue and a lot of things that you need to do to make it actually work. So you need some people that can work with open source and so forth. So it's not an easy thing. We've got people from ShopRite representatives here. We were there talking to some of their data scientists as well, and it was quite interesting. Their approach was also, we're actually going to go open source. We want to use PySpark and we want to use Python, and our data scientist needs to be literate in open source software technology and stack and so forth. So and you see that also. I was last week at Barclays as well, and I've got a very good idea of where they are in terms of applying artificial intelligence and so forth. A lot of stuff is still rules based, but they are also playing around with open source stuff. So it's there. And what we say with Cortex Logic is, let's be real about what's available, and let's really understand the limitations, the strengths and limitations of the various technologies. So if you look at commercial, there's a bunch of interesting technology. If you look at IBM Watson, for instance, we've selected to use that for our first minimum viable product for Bennit specifically. But there's Google as well, one of the best speech recognition APIs. Microsoft is coming to the party big time with their Lewis and all these kind of technology. And as a matter of fact, OpenAI, the company or the non-profit organization that's got $1 billion funding to create safe artificial intelligence, an advanced state of the art, but also creating safe artificial intelligence, they've now partnered with Microsoft as well to use Azure, the cloud. And because of the FPGAs and the equipment that they've got available there, it's an attractive offering. So, and they first use Amazon as well. They still use Amazon, but it's just interesting to see these things happening, and you got to think about cloud infrastructure, who's the players. So that's an important part of it. So I think if you want to build world-class solutions, I want to not be blindsided. I want to be open-minded. I want to see exactly what's available and so forth. So I think there's a thing for commercial. Open source, there's a bunch of stuff available there, and then you can create various different types of IP on different types of layers. You can create your own algorithms, but it's about how you apply the different technology as well. So you've got to get this base layer right and advance the state of the art. But then the two things that we're doing in Cortex Logic is really data science services and smart applications. And one of the key smart application or types of smart applications is intelligent virtual assistants and advisors. And Bennit is one, but we're looking at building other ones for other industries like healthcare, education, finance, and so forth. Robo-advisors for wealth management, insurance, medical insurance, etc. And then you can use that to solve problems. But the interesting thing is, this type of stuff is also generating a new stream of data. So apart from all the existing data that's available, anything that you capture in terms of conversation is there, it's available, and then you want to mine that. That's why data science services is still pretty important. You want to automate that, but you want to still utilize that to do back-end data mining. So it goes to be hand in hand to solve real-world problems. The next slide is just talking about solving intelligence for a better world. And here I'm just coloring it in, effectively. So here you can see, and I've just carefully selected some of the open source stuff that's really best of breed, but there's some others as well. And I'll show you the machine intelligence landscape 3.0, what it looks like. As well, you will see just what's available. And this is just scratching the surface. But On the open source front, TensorFlow, OpenAI is making things available. There's OpenSec, that's great from a semantic knowledge. If you want to build a world model and have meaning, and make sure that the artificial intelligence can understand. It's not just text and doesn't know the meaning. So with OpenSec and those type of stuff, you can actually build solutions that's knowledgeable. But there's Spark, there's MLib, there's PySpark, there's so many different things that's available. Then on the commercial front, these are some of the core big players in the AI space. I've listed GE there as well, but especially Google, IBM, Microsoft, Facebook. They've also formed an alliance, the partnership of AI. And I think it was pretty much Google, Amazon, IBM, Facebook, and Microsoft. Part of that. And then with proprietary R&D, what we mean there is, I think a key part, if you want to create intelligent virtual assistants, contextually aware cognitive systems that learn at scale, supports unsupervised learning, and in the article I actually mention some of the areas that needs quite a bit of research, and unsupervised learning is still a mystery. We're currently using unsupervised learning for people that's knowledgeable on this, more in terms of dimension reduction. If you think about PCA and so forth, if you think about K-means, for instance, utilized for clustering or self-organizing feature maps, it's all clustering and so forth. But there's a lot more that we need to do on unsupervised learning. If you just think about the human brain, there's a lot of things that we do in an unsupervised fashion. Then reason with purpose and interacts with human naturally. And here I'm just really referring to that partnership here, and I think it could be other companies and other organizations, but we just want to set the scene, set an example here, because this is, I think there's synergy here, because with Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, it's about machine intelligence, data science, research and applications. And on the research side, it is about solving intelligence, advancing the state of the art. There's some people with interesting ideas. I know, Rikus, you've got some interesting ideas, and there's a few other people as well. So we want to start looking at the synergies and getting more people involved in very specific projects. And Jacques, you mentioned some interesting thing as well. We said we should also select projects carefully and then focus on that. And I think it's important to have that to have the good understanding of this is the area I'm working in, and this is the specific focus. Maybe I've got a broader vision, but then we need to do very specific things. So I think projects that's meaningful. That's what we try to do with MIIA, is to actually launch projects of meaning. Now, what was interesting when I spoke to Barclays last week, they've got some research projects, and we said we've got a MIIA community. There's 340 members. Not all of them are data scientists, but a lot of them are people that's capable and can do things. So they see this as valuable. They say, okay, great. So maybe we can actually start doing research projects and getting people involved. So this could be a vehicle to do that. And then we want to collaborate and partner with other organizations like OpenAI and all these other ones as well. And we want to contribute to open source projects where it makes sense to do so if we utilize them. Okay, so those were the two that I wanted to talk about. Before I get to Bennit, maybe just this. I talked about smart applications, and just as an example, intelligent virtual assistants and advisors are part of the next tech revolution, as you can clearly see. Google, for instance, Google got the Pixel phone, they've got Google Home, they're trying to compete with Alexa and so forth, and Siri and so forth. They're now capturing, they've got already the world's search data and stuff, but I think they're trying to capture a new stream of data, that's conversational data. And they talk about the transition, 2017-18, and then I think 2019, with all the data that's available, and a lot of people are using their assistants, I think it's going to be super interesting. Because deep learning and those techniques needs lots of data. It's data hungry, and you can create some very compelling solutions just based on what we have right now, in terms of supervised deep learning. But I think there's so much more. Recurrent neural nets, even with that, there's quite a bit of stuff. And DeepMind is using reinforcement learning and really moving forward in that regard. But anyway, intelligent virtual assistants, I've just listed some examples here and things that we are looking at very specifically. So the one that I will show tonight is Bennit, and that's focused on manufacturing, production environment. We're actually doing that, looking to do that as a POC for Goodyear in Cleveland, Ohio, and then there's a number of other companies that's interested. But with this, it's the same kind of thing. So you need an end customer, and you because it's, I think, initially B2B, but you can create B2C kind of solutions here as well. But medical assistants and advisors, wellness, medical insurance, wealth management insurance, we know the banks are already coming and asking and building their own type of solutions, trying things out in this space. They realize that they are being heavily disrupted, so it's critical. On the educational front, if you think about knowledge assistants and tutors, there's some specific ideas actually on the slides, but I'm not going to go through that. There's personal shopping. IBM, for instance, acquired a company that provided an advisor for personal shopping, or assistant for personal shopping as well. So call centers, huge business case there, and there's a bunch of other things as well. And this is just showing assistants that go from just giving information to providing assistance to providing advice and instructions. We actually go all the way to helping on that front. Okay. So I think, just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip all of this, and maybe what I want to do is just quickly show you. Sorry for all this. There's a bunch of slides here. Okay, this is machine intelligence landscape 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. You can't see it, but it's in the LinkedIn article. I've got a link to this and actually a screen cap of that. But this is all just little small companies startups and the big players, big tech players, penetrating pretty much the whole the industry landscape, so agriculture, education, investment, legal, logistics, materials, retail, finance, healthcare. It's got a thing on its own. Patients, images, biological stuff. And then on the enterprise, if you look at any company, you will see visual, audio, sensor, internal data market. But then on the function side, you will see so many, this is all AI companies focused on very specific things. Customer support, sales, marketing, security, recruiting. And on this side, interesting, there's now a mature technology stack that's evolving. And so you've got companies that's focused on enabling things like agent enablers. So they help you to create agents and bots. There's the tools that supports data science. There's tools that supports machine learning, natural language processing, development, data capturing, open source libraries, hardware, and then the research companies. So this is companies that's trying to advance the state of the art as well, like OpenAI, Vicarious, and a few others as well. But anyway, so it looks fairly comprehensive. So I just wanted to, I promise I'm going to show that. So, and yeah, by the way, just as a final comment here, I'm not going to go into details, but what I've listed here, this is quite interesting. I put it in the LinkedIn article. There's a bunch of companies, and it actually goes down all the way. You can see companies that focus on advancing the state of the art of machine intelligence. I've got links there. I have an indication if it's a non-profit. I've got an indication with what country, and then the focus of that particular organization or company, and some of the leading individuals in there. And I've even put MIIA on there as well, because we're representative of Africa, and we wanted to show different countries and continents. Okay, so Bennit, I'm going to be fairly quick with Bennit. Okay, this is Bennit. So I'll do a quick presentation, very quick, a few minutes, and then I'll try and do the demo. Hopefully the internet connection is good. But Bennit is, you will see there's a little AI there, but Bennit AI is really all about, I founded this company with guys in the US that's deep into manufacturing. The one guy is the president of MIIA, the Manufacturing Enterprise Solutions Association, so he understands manufacturing well. And at General Electric, we all worked in that space, manufacturing space, as well as industrial space. And the other guy is also GE and Rockwell. But they've also realized that there's this interesting need along with me, and we said, okay, we should do something about this. And so we've created, it's still in the early stages of the startup, but creating a self-learning, personalized virtual production assistant advisor for people that's in that production environment. So if you're a supervisor or an operator in a plant, operating a machine, you want to know what machines are down, who on my team is on leave, or what is happening, or what's the performances of my particular section in my plant. You want all sorts of systems. Maybe you just want to know more about this particular process. For instance, if it's like Goodyear, for instance, where you look at tire manufacturing, you want to understand. Maybe you work in a certain area like assembly, and now you're going to move to curing, and you want to know what's more about this, or you want to know something about the standard operating procedures of working with this machine or in this year. You want to get a better understanding. And the whole idea is that Bennit gives you that answers. So it needs to connect to plant data, enterprise data. It needs to connect to manufacturing purpose. So you need to train it as well on that, and that's what we do with Watson. But then it needs to interact in a simple way. So the voice that we use is the one that was used in Jeopardy. So that is the standard, so you will see when we go through it. On YouTube, you will anyway see a comprehensive demo where we show all the functionalities and so forth. But it's really a virtual production assistant that saves time and makes industrial users more productive throughout the day. And how does Bennit save time and make industrial users more productive throughout the day? And it's really, you can bring in, optimize even personal time. So ask maybe questions. If you give it access to your calendar and emails and those type of things as well, it can tell you, or say for instance, it's got access to weather, what's the weather like, or whatever, or how it's going to impact. So this is stuff that you can anyway get with Google Assistant. By the way, I've played around with Illah as well, Google's Illah. It's quite nice. And Siri and so forth. I've got an iPhone, so I'm using Siri as well. I'm actually using Illah and Siri. And I've also played around. Barclays has got APSA's got a chat bot on Facebook Messenger you can play around with if you're at Barclays. But it's very limited, so dumb. But it's still quite interesting. You just talk, or you can just specify that you don't need to. You can say pay Peter 10, and it will actually look up who's Peter, and it will know it's 10, and it will confirm it, but it will actually do the transaction for you. So you see that these kind of things are happening. But here you can see it's obviously using AI technology, but you need to have natural language interface, natural language processing, user input. And what we also bring in here, which is quite a differentiator, is you've got lots of experts, maybe people that's retired or people that's available, that's knowledgeable on a certain machine or plant or whatever, and maybe you sit in a situation, you're a supervisor, and you just want to test ideas, and so this could also be a way, apart from this manufacturing corpus, to actually get them involved as well. You can say, okay, and maybe you've got these kind of people that you can access via this as well. And I think the integrated devices systems is obviously important to access plant data. So it's okay. So I'm not MIIA production supervisor. This is just one use case. Loses up to 1 hour of productivity every shift change. So this is something else, very practical. They need to go from one shift to another shift, and they are less productive when they do that. So you want to optimize on that. You want to save time. And there was all sorts of stats. If you just save time in manufacturing in the US, there's something like $95 billion or something. Just if you think about just an hours of saving, if you can make people more productive, there's a business case there. Okay, so I'm gonna skip some of this because I want to quickly show you a demo. just finally, some of the use cases. So it's about productivities like shift changes, preparation, out of process, intervention, interplant, downtime responses, safety. Okay, this is another thing. I know the guys at Shell, for instance, they want something that helps facilitate, record anything that's close to a safety incident. As you know, plants that are very serious about in the industrial world, it's different to any other place. They want to make sure that they've got the safety issues down to zero. So and they are penalised heavily if it's not the case. So they've got a great incentive to make sure that things are safe and secure for people working in that environment. So anything around near misses and recording of that, checking on people, all of those type of things are valuable. So if you've got a cell phone, or you've got I've got here an example of a Texas Instruments sensor tag, and in the demo, I'm not going to show it tonight, but you've got buttons that you can press. But inside, this is like, it's got the same sensors as a phone as well. You've got GPS and accelerometer and all sorts of stuff. If you start moving it around, then that information, if it shakes and you fall down, whatever, you can pick up on that. So it's same with the phone, so you can do that. But there's panic buttons. You can use one of the keys as a panic button and stuff. You press that, and I've got examples of that where it actually creates on the phone. Suddenly it's an alert message, and it tells you something wrong. What's going on? So it tells you just because I've pressed this button, and then you can act on that. And it actually kicks off the safety dialogue. Try to record things, and so I can call 911, or it's obviously in the US. And then the other two is around quality, knowledge, just getting more information about what's happening there, and then any risk-related things is also important. Okay, and there's probably not time now to go into the architectural things too much. Maybe the only thing I want to say here is, this is maybe interesting. So you've got your web apps or mobile applications. What you have on the server side is a bunch of things. You need to have, obviously, on the provider cloud, mobile, runtime environments, and so forth. And here you can see your intelligent services, like IBM Watson, for instance, that we're using here, but you can plug and play. You can decide you want to use Google Speech Recognition API, or you can use for certain things TensorFlow, open source things, etc. And then if you want to connect to devices, you've got IoT platforms. We've been using Watson IoT to connect to these Texas Instruments sensor tags. But you can also hook up directly to your plant enterprise data as well. Also via IoT, like Telet, for instance, but via web APIs you can access this information. But on the data side, which is interesting, here you have, first of all, the user context. And that's interesting. So where you can decide what information you want to capture. So in our case, we're capturing, first of all, the basic information about this individual. So where is he, what kind of work does he do, what's his role, responsibilities, and where does he fit in, and so forth. And maybe what devices are registered with me, what sensor tags or whatever. But I think the other thing that's interesting here is you want to capture daily interactions. You want to detect patterns over time. So you can actually capture in NoSQL, in the cloud and NoSQL database, you create documents that captures daily information about users, and then you can mine that data and you can provide all sorts of interesting analysis on top of that, which makes it interesting. So that becomes very valuable, and a new type of database, a new data stream is interesting. Manufacturing corpus data, expert data, and you've got obviously your plant and enterprise. But now you can look at other things like finance and so forth. You've got the same kind of thing, actually. You're also creating a new stream of data there effectively. Okay, so I'll skip the rest of the slides. So let's just see if I've got, I'm gonna go to internet. Well, by the way, this is the article that you can read. So I've got Bennit open here. Let's see, I've got internet. So what I'm going to do is, let's just refresh this.
Hi, Jacques. I'm Bennit, your personal production assistant. My sole focus is to save you time and help make your life better. Jacques, your user details are as follows.
AF9.
Okay. Now we've got Watson and we've got me. Okay, so basically what happened here, cloud service, and this is what you will see on your phone as well. We've got a version actually for Android, we're creating the iOS version, but this is, so just imagine your phone there. You will see buttons there. This is where you can actually speak to it if you press that, and that is when you actually enable IBM Watson to actually do the speech to text. So basically what happened here is, because I've already logged in here with my Google authentication, it authenticates that it's me, and that's why it says not just hi Jacques, it says hi Jacques Ludik, because and it comes up, I'm Bennit, your personal production assistant, and this is what I want to do. And because this information, I've done this before, it just goes back to that user database, the SQL Cloud database, and just picks that up. And it says my role is management, my area is queuing, equipment is press, and that's my device ID. And that device ID is actually my sensor tag. And then you can also listen to other sensor tags and so forth. So it brings that up straight away. So now I can say, actually, okay, I'm going to quickly type. I'm going to just like this if you can hear me. So I'm going to say, hi Bennit.
Hello, Jacques Ludik. I'm doing good. I'm here to help you. Just say the word.
Bennit, Watson. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna start with. I want to do a survey. I'm going to do a survey.
Great, Jacques Ludik. Let's get started. Help us understand the general flow of material product through your plant. Is it synchronous one-piece flows, asynchronous, continuous?
Okay, it's mixed.
Thanks. Does your product flow follow a defined path or flexible routing?
Okay, defined. It's fine.
How is scheduling done? Is it repetitive, blanket order releases? Describe your product model mix in any given period or major equipment grouping. Relatively limited, e.g. limited by hard assets and tooling.
And then I can just say,
Jacques Ludik, the dialogue has been cancelled. Thank you for your inputs. We can always continue this later.
okay, so I've got an example. Say, for instance, there's actually another demo driving to work where it can. So I'm just going to quickly do that.
Hi, Jacques Ludik. How can I help you?
So I'm going to say what machines are down and who called in sick today.
Jacques Ludik, sure. The equipment in your area that is currently down is force machine 10 in the warehouse conveyor. 2 people from your shift have called in sick. Also, you should know that the maintenance team had unplanned downtime last shift. Press 12 and press 22 were both down for 3 hours. They are back running, but production was impacted by 2%.
So I could say, what is my daughter's practice?
Sarah's practice is at 6:30. We received notice last night that the location was moved to River Road Park. Thanks, Jacques Ludik. You're welcome.
Okay, and then I think what's interesting, you can start capturing, for instance, you can create patterns around this. I want to say start of day. So I'm going to say start day.
Welcome, Jacques Ludik. Let's make this a great day. Anything major planned for today?
Yes.
Okay, Jacques Ludik, do you know of anything that might impact production today? Jacques Ludik, how are you feeling today?
Excellent. And it will respond.
Fantastic, Jacques Ludik. Let's be super productive today.
Okay, so you can have this end of day dialogue. There's a bunch of other things as well. But say, for instance, I've got a problem. Just look at the danger. So I've got a danger. I've got a problem.
Jacques Ludik, do we have a safety incident?
Yes.
Jacques Ludik, do you need help?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Jacques Ludik, stay calm. We'll be calling 911 right now. Please describe the issue if you can.
Okay, I was almost hit by a forklift.
Thanks, Jacques Ludik. Much appreciated. The incident has been captured. Are there any additional information? Safety report. Name, Jacques Ludik. Role, management, area, curing. My apologies, Jacques
I said to him,
Ludik.
stupid.
I'll do better next time.
And he will react to that. And if you, it's just the standard things around. You can ask him about weather, and you can do all sorts of different things. So it's fairly robust, handles a variety of different responses. But say, for instance, I want to ask something more specific, or like domain knowledge around my plant, so I can do the following.
Jacques Ludik, I understand you need some more domain-specific manufacturing information. How can I help you?
I'm just going to ask something about tire processes.
There are 6 basic processes in the manufacture of tires. Mixing of carbon blacks, elastomers, and chemicals in the Banbury mixer to form the rubber compound. Jacques Ludik, what information do you need?
Okay. Okay, so what is vulcanization? And it comes up with
The rubber components of the tire are vulcanized by steam-generated heat in the mold and bladder at pressure is hot. Thanks, Jacques Ludik. I'm here to support you.
Okay, you get the gist. So if you go to the YouTube video, you'll see a bunch of other things as well, which the interesting stuff, we press panic buttons and do all sorts of different things. But you can see the ability to access, yeah, thanks. You can see the ability to access manufacturing corpus information, plant data. I can for instance say reports, performance reports, and I can say I want to look at
Jacques Ludik, which report would you like to see?
I would like to. There's a bunch of reports. So it's an intro report, just information about myself. But I can say machine. I can just say performance. I wonder if that would be performance reports.
The requested report is not available.
So that's not available. So I say reports, and I can say my intro.
Jacques Ludik, which report would you like to see?
Say introduction report, because it captures my introduction. So
Introduction report.
just say
Name, Jacques Ludik. Role, management, area,
Okay.
curing,
Okay.
equipment.
Go.
Thanks, Jacques Ludik. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so took a bit longer. So thank you very much for that. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. Anyone's got questions or anything? Okay, so let's, Paul, if you can come. I've got your presentation open here, so I'm just going to click on that. Paul's just going to give an update on the Data Science Academy, and there is the slides. All to you, back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jacques. So for those of you who weren't here last month, I thought I'd just give a quick background about the Data Science Academy and what it's all about, and then provide an update on where we are currently. So I'm sure a lot of you have realized that, I mean, I noticed it particularly over the last year in particular, that the data science has moved from people just talking about it, reading about it, to really much in the business mainstream nowadays. So business is actually doing it, they're making big investments in it. And this is all great. I mean, it's going to drive innovation, and it's really fantastic, but it's leading to a massive skills gap now in the entire chain. So everybody we've been talking to, companies are asking for skills. Where do we find skills? How do we train our skills? And even people who are working in the field are asking, how do we keep up to date with the latest technologies? And so Jacques and I we connected probably about 2 months ago, and we both shared similar sort of stories and similar sort of vision. And we decided to found a data science academy that will solve these particular issues for corporates and for technologists in the business. So just in terms of what we'll be doing, we're going to be offering courses across the whole spectrum. So we're going to be offering at the C-suite level. So for a senior executive who doesn't know anything about data science but wants to hold an intelligent conversation with his or her techie team. IT professionals, so people that are they want to upskill in a new technology or a new AI model or methodology. So very deep subject matter expertise, sort of five-day type courses. And then we're also going to be offering, and this is something that I'm quite excited about, is actually internship programs for corporates as well. And with that in mind, we started approaching corporates over the last month just to gauge interest, to see firstly what their needs are, particularly what technology stack they're standardizing on, what technologies they're interested in, where they're going to be investing in the next year, and then just to gauge interest whether they would, whether they'd be interested in sending their staff, sending themselves, or actually running internship programs for data scientists. So the response has actually been really, really great. So we first reached out to the MIIA community, and we had meetings with a few people in the community, about 5 or 6, who gave input on what they felt the ideal curriculum should look like, based on their knowledge and their experience in the field and what they're actually working on currently. And then we've met with 10 corporates over the last month now, from retail, the TMT, so technology, media, telecommunications, and then financial services sectors. And across the board, great interest. One of the companies actually expressed a lot of interest, but we're sort of in a situation now to make this work. We would probably need 2 or 3 corporates to come on board to make these economies of scale, sort of justified for the corporates. So we've set up another 3 meetings in the new year. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't the best. So as you all imagine, the budgeting decisions and everything else will happen in the new year. But we have got one person very interested, and very interesting. And Jacques mentioned in the beginning, all the corporates are standardizing on open source technology. So they really are looking at your Pythons, your PySparks, and that's, it's license fees aren't there. You can do pretty much exactly what you can with the licensed technologies. So that's formed our thinking about how we're going to actually start constructing the curriculum. And now Jacques and I have put a very high-level structure together around what the curriculum will look like, but it's very much based around the Python, PySparks, Jupyter notebooks, the technologies that the corporates actually mentioned, and the community that we spoke to. And we'll hopefully be launching our first course at the end of January next year. So just there at the end there, so we just really want to connect with as many people as possible, just to try and make sure that we're on the right path from a needs perspective. We want to make everything as practical and relevant as it can be, and so just invite you to sign up there. We'll keep you keep you up to date with all our progress as we go along, and that's about it. Thanks, Paul.
Pius, you to end off with humanity, hardware for humanity. So you need this one. Almost there. Food and drinks, beer.
Thanks. Thanks, Jacques, for the opportunity, and welcome guys to the LaunchLab. How many of you have been here before? Have you ever had the opportunity to be? Okay. For those who are here for the first time, we're a business, incubator that is trying to accelerate the way entrepreneurship and innovation is done, with an African focus. So we're currently on about 8, universities in the Western Cape, and we try to stimulate,
No, it's fine. Pius, you can understand that something capturing.
No, it's fine. We can hear you. We're just recording, so if you can maybe stand this side, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're trying to, stimulate the entrepreneurial culture in Africa to build a proper ecosystem. And I mean, the Hardware for Humanity project is just something that we're trying to experiment with for next year, to build that culture of, problem solving, tangible problem solving, and not just, vague problem solving or approaches, that are vague, that are not impactful, at any level. I just want to share this quote with you. It's about engaging the mind. How do you talk about solving problems without first looking at, a way to engage the mind in problem solving? And I mean, just to read it out, our species needs and deserve a citizenry with minds wide awake and a basic understanding of how the world works. And in sub-Saharan Africa, most people are detached, from that understanding of how the world truly works. And for me, I am very passionate about seeing us play a very specifically tangible role with the Industrial Revolution. But you cannot play when the whole of the continent is largely detached, from the realities of, the 18th century. I mean, bulk of the continent is still in darkness. We haven't even, we don't even have a single, say, world-class, industry that is able to compete with, say, maybe the Intels and the HPs of this world. There is nothing of such that is of African origin, and you cannot talk about changing the way Africans, play with the rest of the world without talking about changing the way young Africans think. So one might want to think that there is a lot of hopelessness in the air. There is still a little bit of hope, and that hope lies with the younger generation, the millennials. So for me, I can confidently say that I am in a position where I want to give everything to see that the younger generation behind, gets to come to terms with what the reality is, which is the reality of, creating value, and how do you create value? You create value from, from generating idea or ideation, and that transfers to organizing that idea, and that also grows into intellectual convergence of that idea into what can be an aggregation, of value all around. And that can potentially lift people from the lower class, at least the middle class, and if you've got value that I'm looking for, I can afford it, and I pay for that value. And I mean, it's just going to be that exchange of resources, that grows, societies and communities. Because the reason Africa is still in pain and in hunger is because a lot of people are not using their imagination to its full potential. I mean, if you come to a place like Stellenbosch, you can come to a place like Stellenbosch University and you see that things still work. He was just telling me earlier how the municipalities differ, in terms of how they appreciate innovation and forward thinking, and that is the only way we can have prosperity. That's the only way we can have, sustainability and growth, as a continent. So the Hardware for Humanity project is something that is, it's just that opportunity that the continent, has been longing for, to be able to bring a critical mass of young people together, give them a lot of resources and a lot of tools to be able to solve real-world problems, and be able to create value not just for Africa, but for the rest of the world. Just to run you through, you might have run into this this slide a couple of times. I was saying earlier, this is where Africa is still not even playing. We're not here yet, And by Africa, I don't mean the crop of Caucasian communities that are owning businesses and are selling those businesses to, customers overseas. I mean the guy in Kenya, the guy in rural Rwanda, who's got no opportunity to power his farm with any form of energy, not even cattle. He's got to do that labor very manually. Where I come from, they used to say that there is dignity in labor, manual labor. But I mean, gone are those days now. If you've got a sort of aided intelligence or technology that can help you solve your problems, then you can accelerate your contribution and you can increase your contribution by setting a vision and dictating higher, tasks and responsibilities for that technology to solve, and that is what the Machine Institute of Africa is all about. That is what the LaunchLab is all about, and that's why we're gathered here today. So the imagination needs to be unlocked in young Africans, and I think MIIA is on the right track to actualizing that. And I mean, I'm here all the way from Nigeria in the LaunchLab today because I believe the LaunchLab has also got the opportunity and the potential to unlock the minds of very young Africans on the continent. So this is just a slide that I'm also very passionate about. There was a time where the new kid on the block was agriculture, and the work ethics that followed, and that consistency and that growth and that build-up and that sustainability, a sort of a cultural evolution, as people like Jacob Bernowski will want to classify it, is what has pushed that civilization forward. And after the Renaissance, when another new wave of thinking emerged, and even from the Renaissance to the point, of Industrial Revolution, the focus of man shifted from just tool and agriculture and with farming to something more tangible. The scientific discoveries, discovery of rare elements that led to, or that leads, to creations of massive, technological leaps like the computers that we have, from silicon, for instance, and not just agriculture anymore, but the use of that rare element in our natural world to create things that can make our lives better, is what has really given us that credibility and that confidence to push forward. And just to read that for you, rare elements are a series of chemical elements found in Earth's crust that are valid to many modern technologies, including consumer electronics, computers and networks, communications, clean energy, advanced transportation, healthcare, environmental mitigation, national defense, and many others. It is found everywhere. And the reason I'm showing you this slide is because in Africa today, there is no indigenous company that manufactures, vehicles. It's either mass-produced, it's either assembled here, it's either assembled here or imported from Europe and Asia. And I mean, we read about China every day. The reason China is on top of the rest of the world is because they were able to combine the milestones of the first, second, and third industrial revolution to push themselves to be competitors with other first world countries. That's the difference between China and the rest of the world. And they had a little bit of icing on the cake, and that icing was the fact that they could sell internally and even, grow the economy locally because they are over 1 billion people. That's the difference between China and any other third world, economy. The fact that they really, really were serious about changing the way. I mean, I go on the streets and dub streets everywhere, and I see Chinese tourists. That was impossible in the 60s, even though I wasn't born then. But I mean, lives can change if you look well within your physical environment and you stimulate yourself with the rare elements that are in your physical environment. And I mean, we need to be able to get to the point where we give our lives for the next generation, so that because we're a species that is very powerful at recording our behaviors, and recording the things we learn as we behave, leaving a lot of data, for the next generation to mine that data and make use of that data positively. We can do, everything that we're set out to do. We can really leave a very colorful legacy for the next generation to inherit, and that's why I'm very passionate about this. Just to show you that the cell phone you're carrying in your pocket is also made with various rare elements, components. But people don't know about this. The young generation doesn't know about it. Our educational system does not emphasize on how valuable, the tangible aspect of productivity and creation is. How you can really, really put food on one table, and not just one table, but 100 tables. Yeah. So for Africa, the focus is really, really on education and skills development. I didn't say education or education alone. I didn't say knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It is knowledge for the sake of impact. How much do you know, and what problem can you use your knowledge to solve? And also the second would be building sustainable governance system. It's so painful that indigenous African companies try to push, they try to grow, and they try to stay sustainable, and one policy just comes and it cripples everything. We need to be able to train the young generation to be able to create, a thriving ecosystem for everybody, both the business leader and the political leader, And I mean, technology can pretty much solve most of our problems. All we need is just a stable climate to be able to create these technologies, and delivering hard infrastructure. I mean, South Africa is one of the only countries in Africa where you can drive for 100 yards without potholes, for instance. So if that is the case, if cars are not manufactured in Africa, and you have to go to the mechanic every weekend to change your tires and all of that, the little disposable income that is available goes into the servicing of that car, or goes into the importation of technology from overseas into Africa to, improve the condition of that vehicle that you probably have used all of your life savings to acquire. All of these things needs to be in place before we can compete with China in the industrial age, in the fourth industrial revolution. So it looks very difficult, but it is doable. We can get to that point where Africa can conveniently leapfrog the rest of the world. So for me personally, through the LaunchLab, the Hardware for Humanity project is something that I hope to launch in 2017 with the help of Jacques, where we create an environment where people from all over the world, I call them top scholars from all over the world. And I mean, we've been able to start relationship with 2 universities now, one in Netherlands, Utrecht, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, West Carolina University in the United States, and they want to send young, brilliant, problem solvers to come to Stellenbosch and to come to South Africa to spend a period of time, learning about the business ecosystem, learning about the innovations ecosystem, and collaborating with local, South Africans to deliver hardcore, solutions. So they bring their own perspective and merge it with the local perspective, and trying to solve problems, and most of them would be in the position where they can choose to either commit the rest of their life or some years of their development into trying to solve those problems. And if we get a lot of support, we can begin to set up what I like to call crown hotspots in Africa, where those young scholars can physically and tangibly spend time and say maybe drive a project around building a solar farm for a community. I see it as a way of unlocking the overseas venture capitalist market, where if they know about a problem that needs solving, and there is a business potential in that kind of a relationship, they can come, not bring in technology from outside, but come from outside and build the technology locally, and if it fits a profile internationally, they can take that developed product from Africa overseas, and that way we can begin to maybe attract some foreign exchange into Africa, or we can begin to play with the rest of the world. But that second perspective is needed, and that's why the young scholars that we're trying to bring over here are very important. So if we do it right and we follow the model that we have at heart, and on paper, we'll be able to solve real tangible problems and bring young Africans that are previously in the dark, into the light, with the Hardware for Humanity program. So that's just the workflow, the entrepreneurship, innovation, and future trends, aspects of human potential development, because you can go nowhere without understanding the capabilities you carry as a human being, and these are just all of the things that we want to focus on. I'm a little bit ambitious to say that we want to start in January of 2017, like fully having that engagement, but I mean, it's flexible. We can always modify depending on how quickly we're able to set our structures in place. And that's just the final part of the workflow. Just to tell you that, I mean, with the power of the mobile phone technology, some African economies and some African states and some parts of the continent are already, doing well. Everybody knows about the M-Pesa story in Kenya. It's with the operating system that everybody carries in their pockets. And I mean, a lot of people on the continent are getting connectivity every day. And it means the access to relevant information, relevant knowledge, and relevant methods of problem solving is getting the people who are learning how to use their mobile technology to bank, as you can see on this slide. And there's this big disruption of the financial industry happening. So with maybe advanced technology like the blockchain technology and all of that's coming in place, and with a little bit of education that is required to get people to be able to do a lot of things on the cloud and not really need a third party and not really spend a lot of time and money, I think there's hope for the next generation. They can really get to that point where they can be at the same level. They can really save a little bit of their disposable income. They can really learn not to waste time and conserve time and really, reach all of their life's potential, because I mean, everything we're seated here to do today is all about enhancing the human, civilization and broadening the human experience. So I hope to continue communicating and chatting with everybody here to see how you can play a role in enhancing what we're trying to do with the Hardware for Humanity project. I just want to play one video, of an MIT student, David Senge is his name. He's doing his PhD in MIT, and he came up with a solution for his native Sierra Leone. He was privileged to get a scholarship, to study at MIT, and he was able to create a solution that is relevant, that is practical, and that is, tailor-made for his, native home in Sierra Leone. So just spend the next 4 minutes watching it. Thanks for your time.
When I was trying to think about whether I wanted to go to graduate school or not, and I got to meet with Professor Hugh Herr at the MIT MIIA lab, who's my advisor, and he's a double amputee himself. He described to me a problem that he was having, which was that his prosthetic sockets were always uncomfortable. It turned out that it's the same problem that people in Sierra Leone who were amputees also faced. And it was an interesting problem for me to solve because it had a global relevance and a local relevance to Sierra Leone as well. And I wanted to do something that will help enable people's lives globally. And more importantly, people who I knew who were amputees in Sierra Leone. This is the prosthetic socket that's made from a 3D printer, right? And you can see here each color is a different material, and you can press and it's flexible. And this is stiff. And the idea is that we are using data from the human body, right? So you imagine the leg goes in here, and where it's soft is where the bony areas are, and where it's hard is where there's soft tissue. And so we are getting multi-material designs to relieve pressure over the bony protrusions to reduce the strains on the body, such that the person doesn't have pressure sores and the person doesn't have blisters and the person is much more comfortable. That's really all what we want, because if the patient is comfortable, they will do more, they will work more, they are much more healthier, stay out of the hospital and be happy, normal citizens. Personally, wearing this has been a real honor, and I was drawn to it because the people who were previous winners were awesome, cool people, but also they were doing stuff that mattered to the world. I have been in contact with a bunch of media. I have more directly I've spoken to people who wanted to help me expand the work that we do in Sierra Leone and in other communities. We've engaged with people from the Boston area who want to support this work. I also run a series of national high school innovation competitions in Sierra Leone, Kenya, and South Africa. So I was excited about being part of this network of people who, on one part, were thinking about the problems as inventors themselves, but on a significant level, they cared about how you enable other young people to think that way and to problem solve and to hack and to design. It's interesting because the young people in Sierra Leone who we work with recently started thinking about themselves as part of the invention generation. So I'm supporting that and pushing them to think that way. You know, they're part of a new wave of young people who think that the problems in Sierra Leone are immense themselves by others, but they themselves can think about them. You know, they themselves can be creative, they themselves can take an action and solve them. I think it's important that with the resources that we have access to, we're able to think about problems that have global implications and problems that touch us personally, problems that will make somebody who we know's life slightly better.
Great stuff. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Pius. That was awesome. That was a really good, nice presentation. Okay, I think we're done. So there's drinks around the corner in the kitchen. There is food, snacks there. There's some water still there. There's some wine glasses and wine there. So we're done. So let's just socialize and chat and so forth. Thank you very much. Cheers.